This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? Thank you. That is just music to my ears. Thank you very much. But we have in the sponsor opportunity green room, once again, WWE Hall of Famer John Bradshaw, Layfield / rugby ambassador, plus his compadre, King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words, as they prep feverishly for the Your Company Name Here slate that we'll be covering here today. We also have Mr. George Hook waiting, so let's bring in John and Gift. Guys, 25 and 23, not stellar. The best.
Who was best? Who was the best?
John, you were the best. And John, there's a lot that you did right last week. You called in from Portugal on a fishing boat, and you actually had the best record. So reversing everything that you did wrong by not being on the show live on a boat and making you in the walk of shame, and then not having the best picks and getting you the wooden spoon. Management reluctantly salutes you for your good behavior.
There is no management. Fake. You're like that tail guy for Notre Dame, the linebacker that had like the fake girlfriend. You've got like fake management.
You got catfish. Monte or whatever. Yeah. Oh,
Monte
that
Teo,
poor bastard. All right, so we have Mr. George Hook waiting. So let's get to what we got, the wooden spoon.
We can talk about how Fiji plays down to its opponents and makes everybody embarrassed for no reason because we want to take the starlight. It's hard to be the top dog every once in a while. You rooted for you, Fiji. I mean, you won, but embarrassingly.
Yeah. Fiji's like the ex that you keep going back to and you know you shouldn't, just breaking your heart every single time. In a crazy, crazy week, yours truly gets the wooden spoon.
Oh, cool. You get it. You get to keep it.
I'm just going to graciously accept it and know that there's a good chance the rugby odds are in my favor that I won't be getting a wooden spoon again with you two.
Why don't you stick it in your ear? Hey, if you stick it in your ear, you think it'll come out the other side?
We also have the walk of shame. John, you are so easy to pick for the walk of shame, but I get the walk of shame. I get the walk of shame for not having a better record than you two this week. So I welcome that.
So you suck.
This week, I sucked. Yes.
Yep.
But it's liberating when you know that it's just a one shot deal. That's it. That's all it is. On that note, guys, we have to move on because we have to bring in George Hook. So let's take a quick commercial break and bring in George Hook.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
And we are back, and once again, we have the honor of having Mr. George Hook come on. George, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, how?
I must say, I'm not sure what week this is, week 5 or week 6, but I'm getting slightly teed off by the Mr. Hook and by the honor and privilege you're all feeling and having me here, none of which excites me greatly at all, because there are 5.3 million people in Ireland, and at the last count, 5.29 million of them don't have the honor of listening to me. So let's cut that.
Okay, fine. I'm just reading off the teleprompter after
Way
what
to go,
Layfield
Matt.
said.
You made a legend mad. Way to go, Matt, you dummy.
You're the jackass that said to call him Mr. Hook. All right,
Matt.
Anyway, with our recurring themes, we are looking back at the last round of the Rugby World Cup and figuring out what we learned. And George, who better to start us off again but you?
Well, what I think we've learned is that this is a yawn of a tournament. The overwhelming majority of the matches are decided before they're played. The vast majority of these matches are lambs to the slaughter. And unbelievably, the tournament is in danger. That's, I think, what we're learning. The second thing we're learning is Italy is now a problem for global rugby. Conceding as it did, almost 100 points New Zealand. And remember, New Zealand are part of the most competitive rugby championship in the world, i.e. the Six Nations Championship, and they've hardly won a match in it. The question now is, should they be in the Six Nations Championship? If one of the sixth best team in Europe cannot compete in the World Cup, where are we?
New Zealand doesn't play in the Six Nations. So it's kind of like apples and oranges, isn't it?
No, because what we have already seen is the South African provinces play in the European Championship. I mean, let's forget geography for the moment, how the heck you get South African teams into Europe. But anyway, you do. So if you can get the provinces to play in the European Cup, then it's not a big step to say you can get South Africa to play in the Six Nations. And they jump at it. They would absolutely jump at it for the money it would generate, because nobody now cares about rugby. Nobody cares about the game. Nobody cares about the players. Nobody cares about the spectators. Nobody cares about anything. The great banker of the Depression, J.P. Morgan, would be the perfect guy to run World Rugby, because it's all about money. And in fact, now that we're going to J.P. Morgan, I think we ought to get Joe Kennedy in as the deal as well, because he would have cheated and Ireland would have won.
Get some booze in there. But George, you're touching upon a lot of, explosive topics here in terms of the Six Nations specifically. If you don't know this at home, it's not controlled by World Rugby. It's a private entity, right, unto itself. And Italy makes all of its cash, or a lot of it, in that Six Nations. They would have to say, okay, yeah, we're out, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not suggesting I know what the mechanics are. Do Italy say we resign, or do they get sacked or whatever? I don't know. But clearly, the experiment of putting them in the Six Nations by any criteria has been a failure.
And we'll have to rename it from the European Champions Cup with South Africa in that eventually. John, what have we learned from the last round, other than you know how to fish in Portugal?
Well, I tell you what I learned, because I was all over Portugal, all over the Azores, and everybody I ran into said a couple things. For one, they didn't know that Mr. Hook didn't like being called Mr. Hook. So they said, you're working with Mr. George Hook. And I said, yeah, they love George Hook in Portugal. They love the king. And then I was talking to a family there, and the little 5-year-old boy said, yeah, but Matt McCarthy's a bag. Oh. And I said, and his father said, son, you can't say that. He said, Dad, I'm talking about Matt McCarthy. So he said, oh, okay, it's okay. So all of Portugal loves George Hook and King Egbelu, and they really dislike you, Matt. That's the number one thing.
Let's get to the rugby.
The number two thing is all about the rugby. They watch our show, Matt. I'm sorry that people watch our show, and I'm out there greeting our fans. The number two thing is the rugby itself. You have teams stepping up that are playing against tiers that are slightly better than them, that can match up them with a short time. Look at Portugal matched up for should have won the game, matched up for a short time. You had Fiji and Georgia. Georgia stepped up against Fiji. The depth was a problem. So you look at teams that play New Zealand. New Zealand plays 80 minutes of rugby better than anybody in the world, especially when they're the best team in the world, which they're probably not right now. But they weather that storm for 20 to 40 minutes. When you're betting games, remember that when you're betting first halves, because teams can match up against a slightly higher tier than them for 30 to 40 minutes. They can't for 80.
I am stunned. You just made a valid point. And I don't know what you ate in Portugal, but you got to keep eating that. Gift, what did you learn from this round?
Look, I think the one thing that was learned is the one consistency that we've seen this entire tournament, the kicking. I mean, when the kicking is bad, I mean, it's bad, and it affects the games, especially when it comes to these close ones. That Fiji-Georgia match was embarrassing on different levels. What's happening with Ireland, Scotland, and South Africa, and then again, what we see with Japan and Argentina. What is the difference of all those teams? Kicking. Everything else is kind of up in the air. In terms of
No pun intended.
yeah. And lastly, this Rugby World Cup was going to be impossible to match to Japan. Like, it's impossible to match. And to try and be able to mimic that was a cultural event. I don't think that's been able to be mimicked in this one so far.
I want to add a couple of things about what we've learned. Andre Pollard, the Springboks Messiah, has returned, and he ain't rusty. He looked great. So this is going to play deeper into the tournament. Watching Pollard perform, George called it earlier in a couple of these shows previous, but Andre Pollard and Scotland, now the darlings of the tournament, especially amongst Irish naysayers. I'm not one of them. Ireland's going to beat them by at least 2 touchdowns. That's 14 points in American terms. George, did you have any other point before we take a quick break? Because we have a little bit of time.
Well, the other thing is DuPont, because there was a period where he was gone. Now we know he's back because, and I'm no medic, but I have had a similar injury to that. Players have played international rugby. I only played club rugby with a broken cheekbone, but Irish players, have played with a broken cheekbone in an international. The idea of this face covering is a well-trodden path in covering facial injuries. So DuPont back is a major plus for the tournament. Ireland are now worried about New Zealand. Make no mistake about it. They were playing Italy, but it was the old New Zealand with the killer instinct. Scotland are not a worry.
We'll be right back with questions for Mr. Hook, George Hook, right after this. You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. And we are back again with George Hook, John Bradshaw, Layfield, and Gift Egbelu. Questions for Mr. Hook. John, what do you got?
Yeah, George, I really believe that character is not built in adversity circumstances. I believe it's just simply revealed. When you had France versus New Zealand, France realized by the time the first half was over, they were a better team than New Zealand. That realization caused them to just boat race New Zealand in the second half. Did New Zealand come to that realization also against Italy? Looked like the first 8 to 10 minutes this game was going to be close. All of a sudden, it looked like the All Blacks realized, you know what? We're the All Blacks. And they destroyed a tier 1 country. Do you think that light switch went on in that game for the All Blacks?
There are a number of examples of where players take over rather than coaches. And I have a view, which I'm in a minority, that Joe Schmidt is a pretty rubbishy coach. And he was a poor coach to Ireland. He was overly conservative. He was over-controlling, right? Now, I think what happened to the All Blacks after the debacle against France, and for them it was, the players said, hold on here, Joe. I know you don't want us to pass the ball. Joe, I know you want us to kick it. Joe, I know you want to be conservative, but we are going to play like Kiwis. And I think they did. Now, I could be utterly wrong. Maybe that didn't happen in the changing room. But I don't think you can get that difference. Your point, John, and it's really well made. That point about character and everything changing, I think that happened in the changing room. They said, if we're going to lose this tournament, we're going to lose this tournament. But we're going out like All Blacks. We're not going out with a whimper, which happened to them in the World Cup in when it was last in France, and they were beaten by the French. This time, I think they're saying, we're going out like All Blacks, and that's really bad for Ireland.
I gotta just add a point here. George, do you know who Joe Madden is?
Was he the fellow who kind of copied George Hook on the NFL on television?
That was John
And
Madden.
he wouldn't fly airplanes. He wouldn't
Yes.
fly airplanes.
That's right. That was John Madden. But Joe Madden, no relation, was the manager of the Chicago Cubs that won the World Series the same week that Joe Schmidt's Ireland beat the All Blacks for the first time in 3,000 years in Chicago. And here you are continuously bashing Joe Schmidt.
No, one thing about me is I'm consistent. I bashed Joe Schmidt for the first time I saw him in Leinster. And I bashed him at Leinster, I bashed him in Ireland, and I'm happy to bash him anywhere.
Fair enough.
And me and King continually bash you, Matt, 24/7.
Yeah, but I edit that out. So, and I turn your mic off. So I have that. I have that
But
control.
I must say, that was a very good question.
John's on a roll.
Thank you.
John, you are on a roll. How high are you right now? He's reading off the teleprompter, George. Gift, got a question for George?
Yeah. Look, you've mentioned on multiple occasions that as you felt, especially with this tournament, that the quality obviously has dropped, and a lot of that is going towards commercialization. On the other side of it, it doesn't feel like rugby actually grows monetarily. It seems it's actually becoming more indebted, losing more of its power, just seems to be actually going the opposite direction. For you, seeing what's happening with the tournament, I've seen that commercialization probably isn't working. What is, in your opinion, at least a stepping stone to what kind of beginning does it need to go to kind of recalibrate where rugby is? Because this doesn't seem to be working on any levels right now.
This is a half-hour show.
Oh, it's another great question that doesn't need a lot of time to answer it. There are two sports that were never meant to be watched by spectators: cricket and baseball. They were both invented for people to play, not for people to watch, because they are both the most boring sports on
How
earth.
dare you?
Right? Rugby was never, ever, ever meant to be professional. But like when faced the understandable situation of players who were saying, every week we're playing in front of 70,000 people, the unions are making a ton of money, can we have some of it, please? That was an inexorable move. But if clubs actually go and bust, that then leads inevitably to the stupidity of trying to turn it into, if you have 24 teams instead of 20 teams, then you make more money. Rugby now is motivated by money. Nobody gives a hoot about the game. They only give the hoot about the money.
All right. So speaking of money, this show is a gambling rugby show, entertainment show, and we have a limited amount of time. But how about a second tier Rugby World chalice or bowl being played simultaneously?
You gonna call it the toilet bowl?
Let's ignore John.
I'm with John. The toilet bowl. And this is horse manure, a suggestion of the greatest level of horse manure.
What question?
Rubbish. Sport is about, what makes sport great is competition. Money isn't going to save America.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not.
That's what you're saying. You're talking about the toilet bowl competition.
Yeah.
Nobody will watch. Nobody will care about. No, I mean, you have a better chance of taking a bet on Innisfree with John Wayne and the Quiet Man than you have on Hong Kong winning the first match of the toilet bowl. Come on, give me a break. I thought this was a legitimate program.
All right. So how many teams should be in the Rugby World Cup in Australia if it is indeed in Australia?
Eight.
That's not going to happen. So, we're likely to go in the other direction, which is unfortunate because it's just watering down the tournament. Argentina versus Japan. Who's going to win it?
I think Japan are going to surprise us because it's only 4 years since Japan had a wonderful World Cup. And I don't believe with the same coach in 4 years, they've gone backwards that much. They're going to be difficult to beat.
On that note, Mr. Hook, I want to thank you, George, for coming on once again.
George. Canary on Bohalat live Calais.
Hell yeah.
Right back at you. We'll be right back right after this.
From New York City comes America's longest running and most popular rugby show. The biggest names in Major League Rugby, MLR highlights, and big match previews. Rugby Wrap-Up presents MLR Weekly, made in New York City.
We're back, and that was great to have George back on, and you guys were relatively well-behaved, and you sounded intelligent at times. It was
less
kudos.
at us than he was at you.
Bam.
All right, moving right along, let's go to the Rugby World Cup, and we're each going to take a shot at one match in this. Will be round 5. John, who do you like?
Ireland, and for a lot of reasons. They have been disrespected like crazy, and I think they feel like they've been disrespected.
Aren't you Scottish? All you
I
do
am
is
Scottish.
talk about being Scottish.
I believe Scottish is going to play these guys tough. I believe Scottish is a good team, but they're going up against an absolute buzzsaw. And what the King and I do is not bet according to allegiance. We bet according to who is going to win. That's why people like us on the show and know that you are English. Love the English, want to be Prince Harry or Meghan Markle or whoever you want to be, but you want to be English. I'm going with Ireland for one good reason. Ireland has been disrespected. They won the Six Nations. They've beaten France. They've beaten New Zealand in the past year. And all the talk is about France and New Zealand.
Well, they also beat South Africa in this tournament.
Scotland is going to, that's right. And Scotland's going to be game. They're going to play hard. First half's going to be close. Ireland is way too deep. They're going to beat them by more than 11.5.
So you're riding both sides of the fence, complimenting your fellow Scots. And
love my fellow Scots, and I'm rooting for Scotland, but I'm betting on Ireland. Go ahead and root for the English. Go ahead.
Gift.
Prince Charles, now King Charles.
Gift, who do you like?
Japan versus Argentina. I like Japan in this game. Argentina has been putting up a nice little game, beating basically everybody that they're supposed to. Japan is actually a team to beat. Japan actually knows what they're doing. They've been here before, but most importantly, they got the talent for it, and I think that they are far better in their centers and their forwards.
I'm going to try to follow the money here. At 19.5, it seems like a lot of points, but I think Wales is playing well. I think they win this by 20 points.
Hey, I hear most of your family's from Wales. The other half's from people.
All right, let's move on. John, we don't want to neglect the grand final, and we had mixed results here. Gift and I picked the winner, the Panthers, but this is a gambling show, and it was a 3.5 point spread. And the Panthers only won by 2 points against your Broncos, John, so you win.
Look how many cowboy hats I got. Of course the Broncos won.
They didn't win. They covered.
They covered. That's what's win. I won money.
Then that's all that matters. Winning money. I like that. That's why he's on the show. Gift, who do you like in the NPC? Quarterfinals.
Bay of Plenty versus Hawke's Bay, the battle of the bays, but not the ones that you love, is one that I think is to watch. But I'm liking this Hawks over Bays, even though Plenty of Bay has a 3.5 point spread on them. But Bay it up with Bay is going to be about the ones that fly. Hawk all day.
Bay.
So you're taking Hawke's Bay plus 3.5.
Spread plus 3.5, yes.
That's what he just said.
He said a lot there, John. I have no idea what he said.
Easy, baby.
Who do you like?
Wellington. I bet on Wellington all year long. I'm not changing now. Don't overthink this. Simple. Bet Wellington.
I'm going to go with Canterbury, minus 4.5 versus Auckland. That's a match. If you want something outside of the Rugby World Cup, watch that one. And on that note, guys, we're basically out of time, so we got to do our picks of the week, plugs, and get out of here. So picks of the week, Gift, who do you like?
The true bottoms of the bottoms. Tonga versus Romania. Tonga's got a 36-point spread favoring them. And I actually think this is going to be the first game that Romania actually plays like they probably are supposed to be in this whole tournament at all. Man,
it's a lot of points, 36.5.
Even better. Yo, I think Romania actually plays a little defense, all the heart, throw it on the field, give it what Namibia never got. and gets at least 3 to 6 points on here and holds Tonga under 30.
I don't disagree with that one. John, who do you like?
I'll tell you what I'm going to bet on. I like the fact that Scotland is going to play hard. They're going to run, and they're going to try to roll. I think Ireland is too deep, and they're going to get them in the second half, but I think the total goes over with a lot of points scored. Scotland, Ireland.
All right.
And George says your idea was horse manure.
I just got a call from Joe Schmidt, and Joe Schmidt and I are going to be the organizers of the Tier 2 tournament, and it's going to have promotion relegation for the next
Joe
World
Madden
Cup.
analogy was absolutely stupid. I mean, actually, George said your idea was the worst he had ever heard. Ever. And he's like an older guy.
Yeah,
now you're an ageist.
That with the NCAA March Madness, and nobody literally watches that other tournament.
Okay, so
Bingo. Bam.
You two ageists are now criticizing George. Way to go, guys. Way to go. They're just telling more lies. I had to mute their mics, ladies and gentlemen. They're just not telling you the truth. And this show is about integrity. It's about the truth. It's about the word, the Rugby Odds. And these two are proving once again that they are willing to stretch the truth for maybe a soundbite. And my soundbite is going to be another winning pick. My pick of the week is England. England to run Samoa out of the park, and this should get a reaction from my colleagues.
Oh, I can't believe you're betting on England.
Shockers.
18 and a half.
English
It's just
McCarthy.
sitting there. It's candy from a baby. 18 and a half. Come on.
When they say London Irish, they're talking about you, Matt.
Bam. London Irish.
All right, guys. Plugs. Gift.
Health enhanced food, gut health. Yo, Thanksgiving is coming up. You want to make your stuff 20 minutes, get some great things that'll help for all your bread needs. And of course, also check out Rugby Swag Show, both healthenhancedfood.com and gifttimerugby.com/Rugby Swag Show.
Are you doing the show from your fulfillment center?
We do it from whereas necessary. You know why? Because we are so family friendly that we make sure that every package is taken in with care.
I'm going to open up one of those like Shark Tank right next to you and crush you like the cockroach that you are. John, plug.
Speaking of crush, Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw had Baron von Raschke on our show last week. Crush you with the Iron Claw. And he really dislikes you, Matt. Check it out on YouTube.
I will kick his ass anywhere, anytime.
You could tie him to a tree and not beat him up in a week.
Can we try that? Would you be up for it?
Yeah.
I'm going to plug George Hook's podcast. Go to @GHook on Twitter to find it. And also, I want to plug the Pig and Whistle. If you can't be at the Rugby World Cup, come to New York City and go to the Pig and Whistle. Tell them John Bradshaw Layfield sent you, and you will get absolutely nothing. But if you tell Cormac McCormack that Rugby Wrap Up and the Rugby Odds sent you, you might have something else. On that note, we're out of time. I want to thank John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE Hall of Famer, King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words, Mr. George Hook. Just call him George, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including MLR Weekly, the College Rugby Wrap-Up. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Please sign up for our weekly newsletter, and please join our American Red Cross Blood team.
It's like a yard sale.